These celebrities had everything: fame, fortune, millions of fans, but as soon as they tried to speak out against what was happening in the industry and against the Illuminati, they were killed, or they mysteriously died. A lot of these celebrities died under some bizarre, unexplained circumstances, and a lot of people believe that some of them might have just been silenced. So today we're going to be talking about some of the craziest celebrity deaths that are connected to the Illuminati. There's been decades worth of different theories and cover-ups in regards to a lot of these conspiracy theories, so let's get into it. Alright, the first person that we're going to be talking about is probably one of the most obvious people on this list. It's Michael Jackson. So Michael Jackson obviously rose to fame as a child from the Jackson 5, but by 1980, he was more than just a pop star. He was literally a global icon. Everyone knew who he was. The success of Thriller, Bad, Dangerous, he became bigger than the industry itself. In multiple interviews from the early 1990s, Michael Jackson began subtly hinting at the battle behind the scenes. He would talk about how he felt a lack of ownership over himself and had no sense of freedom, and he was just being completely controlled by the industry. He very much had a lot to say when it came to different contract lawyers. He would use that as like kind of an umbrella term of people who were trying to keep him silent. In the early 2000s, Michael Jackson entered a very public war with Sony Music, particularly the CEO, Tommy Mottola, who worked very closely with artists like Mariah Carey, and they were actually married at one point. Michael accused Sony of sabotage and racism and claimed that they were intentionally burying his music to ruin his reputation and profits.
Being the artist that I am, at Sony, I've generated several $1 billion for Sony, several billion, and they really thought that my mind is always on music and dancing, and it usually is, but they never thought that this performer, myself, would outthink them.
Yeah!
So I'm leaving Sony a free agent. Owning half of Sony. So I own half of Sony's publishing, and I'm leaving them, and they're very angry at me because of it, but I just did good business, you know. So the way they get revenge is to try and destroy my album. But I've always said, you know, good art never dies. And Tommy Mottola is a devil.
Respect!
I'm not supposed to say what I'm going to say right now, but I have to let you in on a secret.
Say it.
So, please don't videotape what I'm going to say, okay? Turn that off, please. No, what? I don't mind. Tape it. Mariah Carey, after divorcing Tommy, came to me crying. She was crying so badly I had to hold her. And she said to me that this is an evil man. And Michael, this man follows me, she said. He taps her phones. And he's very, very evil. And she doesn't trust him. And he is a horrible human being. And we have to continue our drive until he's terminated. We can't allow him to do this to great artistry. We just can't.
In 2002, he said, quote, Tommy Mottola is a mean, racist, and a very, very devilish man. They don't want artists to own their own work. They want control. And at the time, this wasn't just a frustrated artist lashing out. Michael had recently gained partial ownership of Sony/ATV, and that included the rights to the Beatles catalog, and his catalog alone was worth billions of dollars. So he wasn't just fighting for creative freedom at this point. He was actually becoming a financial power player in the game, and a lot of people believe that that's what made him a threat. A lot of conspiracy theorists believe that this is the moment that Michael Jackson stepped out of line and he started naming different names, he started showing the cards, and just exposing the industry or the people behind it. And that's when the people behind the industry started to fight back. In the years leading up to his death, Michael's behavior changed dramatically. He became very reclusive, paranoid, and obsessed with surveillance. Multiple friends and employees later said that he would cover hotel room cameras, whisper to avoid being recorded, and he would tell people that he felt like he was being followed.
I don't know who may be listening. There may be a group of people that want to get rid of me. They don't want me here anymore.
I don't understand. What do you mean? Talk to me.
I can't talk about it over the phone. I don't know what's going to happen, but I just feel in my soul, only God knows, they could shoot me. They could stab me. They could frame me and say I overdosed you with drugs. They can do a lot of things.
Rat Murray is simply the fall guy. This was definitely something that was premeditated, that they had planned to do, and they planned to take my brother out, and my brother knew it, and that's why he told me repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly that this was going to happen to him. He explained it to me. He explained it's because of my catalog, which is my publishing, and they're after it, and they want it, and they want their hands on it, and they want to take it away from me. So Michael developed this love-hate relationship with his catalog. I don't want it because it's going to destroy my life. No, it's mine. I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to let them rip it apart and take it from me. This went back and forth. I began to see his personality change.
In 2005, after he was ultimately acquitted for his child SA trial, he actually fled the United States, and he spent some time in Ireland and reportedly told his friends that he was never safe in Hollywood again. And according to his friend Dick Gregory, he said, quote, "If anything happens to me, it's not an accident." In 2009, Michael Jackson announced a comeback tour, the This Is It tour. It was meant to be his triumphant return. There was 50 sold-out shows in London, but fans noticed that something was off. He looked frail, he looked over-medicated, and he kept saying things that felt like foreshadowing at this point. Like, in the This Is It rehearsals, he allegedly told several crew members, quote, "They're trying to kill me. I'm scared about my life." And in this particular instance, he was allegedly referring to AEG Live. So AEG Live was the promoters of his tour, and he believed that the pressure to perform was putting his health at risk. He said he was exhausted, and a lot of people said he wanted out. And then, of course, on the morning of June 25th of 2009, Michael Jackson was found unresponsive in his Los Angeles home, and his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, admitted to administering the powerful sedative propofol to help him fall asleep. Again, he's a doctor, though. He really shouldn't have done that, or should have known that that was like inaccurate, but obviously a lot of people are going to do things for money. At the end of the day, he's a celebrity physician. Obviously, he's getting paid well, so he's going to want to do whatever the celebrity is asking him to do. But at the end of the day, the timeline of events have always been kind of murky here. Like, for one, why was this drug even being used? This drug is typically used in surgery, and it was just being given to him nightly. That kind of makes no sense. Why was Dr. Conrad Murray the only doctor on staff? And again, we have to think about the fact that Michael's last calls, his medical records, and even parts of his will are still under scrutiny to this day, over a decade later. Dr. Conrad Murray was eventually convicted of involuntary manslaughter, but a lot of Michael Jackson fans claim that they felt like it was someone higher up who orchestrated it all, and that Dr. Murray was just a fall guy. And even his own family believes that this is true. His daughter Paris Jackson has spoken out about this, and his sister LaToya as well. I don't know, I just obviously think it's strange that he had been saying he felt like he was being watched. He said if he ever died suddenly, it wouldn't be natural, and his final years were filled with feuds with billion-dollar companies, ownership battles over iconic music catalogs that were worth billions of dollars, cryptic statements about death and surveillance, increasing physical deterioration despite preparing for a tour, and a sense that they were going to kill him. They were closing in. He kept repeating this over and over again. Something about his death has always felt off to me. All right, the next celebrity death we're going to be talking about is the death of Tupac Shakur. So Tupac actually had a lot to say about the Illuminati before he died and the industry in general, and honestly, I didn't even realize how bad it was, considering I feel like we all know that P. Diddy allegedly killed Tupac or had him killed. I do think that now, with everything going on with Diddy, this has become a very interesting theory. In several different interviews and song lyrics, Tupac spoke repeatedly about how forces were working behind the scenes, and that he felt that artists were being used, and that several artists were being used to sell a message and then discarded once they became too powerful. He also talked a lot about spiritual warfare, false freedom, and being controlled by an invisible hand. And then he gave that hand a name, the Illuminati. So on his final album, released under the alias of Machiavelli, which is a whole nother conspiracy theory because Machiavelli is someone who faked his death. But regardless, Tupac made it pretty explicit the full title was the Don Killuminati, the Day 7 Theory. This wasn't just a random phrase. Killuminati was a term he coined, kill the Illuminati, a symbolic declaration of war against the powers that he believed were manipulating the music industry and the world. In a lyric, he said, some say the Illuminati is watching, thinking they'll profit. They ain't stopping nothing. I'm watching them watching me. Which is just eerie when you look back on it. So before his death, Tupac began calling himself Machiavelli, which is a reference to Niccolo Machiavelli, who was a Renaissance philosopher who famously wrote about faking your own death to gain advantage over your enemies. And that's why so many people believe that Tupac faked his own death to escape the Illuminati. And I've always believed that there could be a part of this theory that's true. And of course, the infamous album cover depicts Tupac on a cross, crucified like Jesus, and he even says in lyrics, like you expect Jesus to come back, I'm coming. And to a lot of conspiracy theorists, this wasn't just music, this was prophecy. This is what ended up happening. So of course, on September 7th of 1996, Tupac was in Las Vegas for a Mike Tyson fight, and hours later he was gunned down in a drive-by shooting, and 7 shots were fired in his car. And then just 6 days later, on September 13th, he died in the hospital. But the case had never really been officially solved. Sort of. I feel like the Key VD information, which is basically this man who confessed and said that P. Diddy offered him $1 million to kill Tupac, but no one's ever technically been held very responsible yet. Not only that, but his death certificate had some really weird inconsistencies. He was cremated within 24 hours, which is kind of unusual for someone so famous. And the man who cremated him allegedly disappeared after. And even Suge Knight, who was obviously Tupac's right-hand man, the owner of Death Row Records, he even said that Tupac's death was suspicious. I honestly don't really know what I think here, because I do think that, Diddy definitely had everything's lined up to make sense that Diddy killed Tupac or had Tupac killed. And I do believe that that's true. But if Tupac knew that was coming, is it a possibility that he did get shot that day and then decide to fake his death because he was terrified for his life and terrified of this Illuminati? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying I think it's 100% true, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts because it's definitely scary. All right, the next celebrity we're going to be talking about is Prince. And Prince actually predicted his own death a couple times, and he just was really rebelling against the industry at the time of his death. It's kind of insane. As Prince's success grew, he did really start to become aware of how tightly the industry gripped its stars. He even said, quote, "If you don't own your masters own you," which is about music masters. We've even seen that with Taylor Swift, and it was really true. And in general, he's just talking about the freedom and the lack of freedom, I guess, in the music industry overall. In the early 1990s, Prince found himself in a battle with his record label, Warner Brothers. Despite being one of their most successful artists of all time, the label refused to release his albums at the pace that he wanted. They controlled his name, they tried to control his image, and they controlled his catalog. This was when Prince began appearing in public with the word slave across his face, and he was just actually actively rebelling against Warner Brothers and the control that they had over him. He's been kind of talking about conspiracy theories for a while, kind of in general. In 2009, he said, "When I was a kid, I used to see these trails in the sky all the time, and now we see them all the time. You see them lined up, and people say, oh, that's just jets going over, but that's not what that is," obviously referring to chemtrails. And he continued with saying, "You better wake up, that's what I'm trying to tell you." And while Prince wasn't directly using the word Illuminati, to a lot of people he didn't have to. He was very clearly talking about the control of information, the manipulation of consciousness, and spiritual warfare, and all of these are major pillars of modern Illuminati stories. As Prince aged, he became more reclusive. He didn't really drink, he didn't do drugs, he practiced a very clean spiritual lifestyle, and he gave fewer interviews, and when he did, they were often very brief and surreal or deliberately mysterious. One haunting quote that he said is, "Don't let me die in an elevator," which is obviously a strange request when you know what happens next.
He has a song called Let's Go Crazy.
Yeah.
And it says, "Don't let the elevator bring us down." One time when I was with him privately, he said, "You know what the elevator is, right?"
No.
I said, "No, what's the elevator?" He said, "Well, the elevator is the devil." Right? It scared me. I don't like to talk like that, but he said that. And so for me, it was like really haunting when I read that he was found in an elevator.
So on April 21st of 2016, Prince was found dead in the elevator of his estate in Minnesota, and the official cause of death was an accidental overdose of fentanyl. And of course, Prince had reportedly been suffering from the flu just days earlier, obviously not a condition that you treat with fentanyl. He had allegedly been seen pacing his property looking paranoid in the days before his death. Prince's former lawyer was also claiming that he was not suicidal and he was not using any hard drugs and he was actively working on new music. And again, I just think it's pretty chilling that he said, "Don't let me die in an elevator," and then he literally did. I don't know. Something about it is just weird. I want to hear your guys' thoughts here because I do think that it's strange how deeply he spoke out against the industry and then all of a sudden is just dead. And I don't know, it keeps happening and that's very sketchy, obviously. Now, the next celebrity is someone we knew had government involvement, and it's none other than Marilyn Monroe. So Marilyn Monroe was obviously the most famous woman in the world. She became the face of American glamour. But beneath it all, Marilyn Monroe was really unraveling, and she tried to speak out about the powerful structures that had owned her image and her voice and possibly her life, but ultimately was maybe silenced. Her death in 1962 was ruled a suicide, but decades later, the questions have never stopped. By the early 60s, Marilyn Monroe was not just an actress at this point, she was a national obsession. She was beautiful, everyone loved her, but it was her rumored affairs with President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, that pushed her into dangerous territory. A lot of people believe that she was actually very in love with John F. Kennedy and allegedly thought that the relationship could be more than an affair, but obviously that wasn't true. He wasn't leaving his wife, and a lot of conspiracy theorists and insiders claim that she felt rejected and humiliated, and that's when she started to unravel emotionally. There's a lot of rumors and speculation that Marilyn had overheard government secrets during pillow talk with JFK, including aliens, MK Ultra, and a lot of just different conspiracy theories that you probably wouldn't want to get out. Multiple sources, also including her longtime friends and housekeeper, have confirmed that Marilyn kept a red diary where she allegedly recorded every single one of her thoughts, her secrets, and everything that she ever heard from any powerful man. And after her death, the diary just vanished. It's just gone. The first police officers on the scene never logged it as evidence, and the FBI was immediately involved in the case, which is highly unusual for a local suicide. Decades later, it's been revealed that the FBI had hundreds of pages on Marilyn Monroe, but most of them are still redacted to this day. A lot of theorists say that her diary contained proof of a wider conspiracy theory, and once word got out that she planned to go public with her story, she became a liability, and that's why she was killed. A lot of people think Marilyn Monroe is maybe one of the first Hollywood sacrifices that we see in regards to the Illuminati, and I just think it is interesting. Like, I do think that she definitely uncovered something and threatened to expose the government, expose JFK, and she was ultimately taken out, and there's a lot of evidence from it. I've done like a ton of videos on it, but if you want to watch like one of my full videos about Marilyn Monroe's death, it is absolutely one of the most suspicious deaths in Hollywood, I think maybe ever. It's sketch. It's sketch, I'm not gonna lie. Alright, the next celebrity death I want to talk about is the death of Aaron Carter. This is a recent one, and it's very interesting considering some of the things that Aaron Carter said prior to his death about the Illuminati. So Aaron Carter had struggled with a lot of different things as he was growing up, as most child stars honestly do. But in the year before his death, he became one of the most online celebrities who was live streaming multiple days, often in tears, manic, and ranting about being followed. He even said, "I'm being set up, I'm being stalked, there are people out to destroy me." He said, "They want me dead. If anything happens to me, it's not suicide."
Back then, I really didn't think that I would make it past 21 years old. Actually, it was 18 first, and then I did that, and then 21, here I am still. For some reason, I always had a fear that I was not going to be able to live that long. You know, I have no idea why. It might have just been all the chaos around me.
He repeated this kind of behavior not just on TikTok and Instagram, but also in private DMs to his friends and family. And he would even look in the camera and say, "If you're watching this and I'm not here, you'll know what happened." And Aaron kind of made very specific allegations here. He said that his family tried to betray him, that people in the industry had stole everything from him, that he had information about elite crimes, and that he had proof of cover-ups and was trying to share it. But ultimately, he obviously died.
Remember that one boy?
Now listen to this. I have to tell you this.
Okay.
So after I left the party, and the next day I smoked weed with Michael, and then I get in the limousine and I leave. I get back to the Sheraton Hotel at Universal over here. There's 4 FBI agents waiting for me in the hotel room. And my mom's there and she's like, "Tell them what happened." And I'm like, "What do you mean tell them what happened?" And I sit down with them and they all ask these super sexually exploiting, questions, back-sided questions. And I knew that at my age already. And I looked at all 4 of them and I said, "Are y'all crazy?" I said, "What you think I'm gonna do? Tell you that Michael did something bad so that we can sue him for money?" That's what I told him. I was like, "You're crazy." And I looked over at my mom and I was like, "Are you serious, Mom?" I was like, "What is going on here? Why are you letting this happen?" And she goes, well, "I think something happened, I think something." I'm like, "Really? That man did nothing but be hospitable, kind, loving, giving, everything you could think of. We rode 4-wheelers for 5 hours, me, him, and Chris Tucker in the mountains at nighttime after his birthday party. Him and I hung out and talked pretty much all night. Got a couple hours of sleep. I wake up. He's not even in the room. He pulled out a cot for me in his room because I asked him. I was like, "I want to hang out with you. I want to be around." It was Michael.
Yeah.
I want to hang out with him. I wanted to hang out with Michael. He pulled out a little cot or something. I laid on the cot. I wake up in the morning. His bed's made. There's a Queenie lady that wakes me up. I keep asking, "Where's Michael?" I go over. He's got this huge statue figurine that Michael Jordan sent him for his birthday, because he collected that stuff. Went and smoked some with him, get in the car, and then all this shit happened when I got back to LA, and I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" I was like, and I looked at my mom, I go, "Are you really trying to go at Michael and use me for a money grab?" I was like, "Nothing." And I looked at him right now, I said, "Nothing happened." I said, "Michael was flirting with girls right in front of me. Actually."
Yeah.
And it was hilarious because he was very charming.
I bet. It's Michael Jackson.
he made girls just light up, blush, and like I saw him looking at girls' booty. I said, I saw you looking at her booty." He was like, I was like, and so I hear these stories of like Wade Robson, and then I'm like thinking to myself, wait, hold up. I know Wade Robson. Wade Robson pretended to be the voice on my album, Aaron's Party, for my brother. because my brother didn't do it, so Wade Robson did it. It was like a little spoof thing, an interlude in my second album, Aaron's Party, and Wade Robson did the voice of like pretending to be my brother or some shit. And I'm like, wait, hold up, Wade leaving Neverland? What is this? Like, what do you mean leaving Neverland? Like, I left Neverland. Everything was cool, homie. Like, what's your problem? Did you dream this up? Did your parents tell you to do this?
Yeah, I mean, they try to sue for like $100 million, and ultimately it was dropped. They got nothing out of it, as they should.
Nothing.
As they
That
should.
dude didn't do shit like that.
Yeah.
Like, I knew Michael better than all of them.
Yeah, I believe
Even
everything that I've
Macaulay,
seen.
if it was Macaulay right now,
I'm not buying it.
Even if it was
I'm not
Macaulay Culkin sitting right here, he would tell you the same thing I did with the same assertiveness.
Again, several times before he died, he very clearly said, they're going to kill me soon. I already know it. If anything happens to me, dig deeper. And on November 5th of 2022, he was found dead in his bathtub. The official cause was drowning after huffing compressed air and taking prescription medication. And it was ruled an accidental overdose, but again, people had been watching this happen and watching him talk, and all of it unfold. It just felt orchestrated. I also think it's interesting because he is a child star, so he talked a lot about being used in the industry as a kid, being exploited and discarded, and he tried to speak out honestly very often. And he was seen as unpredictable, which a lot of people think that that meant he was considered dangerous or a threat. And there's just so many interviews and videos of him talking about his death and talking about the industry. It's eerie as hell to listen to these things at this point. It is always kind of scary and makes you wonder, I don't know, if something darker was going on. Anyway, that is it for today's video. If you guys liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about these different celebrities. And if there's any other strange celebrity deaths you want me to talk about, let me know. But that is it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and subscribe to new videos every week. And I will see you guys later. Bye.